I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's podcast. Hey, everybody. Excited to be here today and to introduce you to Nikki Silvestri, who is with Soil and Shadow. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you, and I'm really excited today to delve deep into your career journey and would love for you to give us a 90-second overview of what it is that you do and why you got into it.
Soil and Shadow is an executive coaching and fractional people ops and performance firm. So we provide services when a company, between 10 and 50 million doesn't either they have a people ops team and they need some outside perspective and support, or they don't have a senior people ops person. And so we provide fractional services, and I can get into that more deeply later on. But also with executive coaching, we support leaders to be whole and healthy as they do purpose-driven work. Why I got into that work is I suffered from a breakdown in 2014, deep burnout. And it took me a few years to recover from that. And I built Soil and Shadow to ensure that women leaders didn't have to go through what I did.
Wow. So you've created something out of your personal experience, and now you're helping
That's right.
people evolve that burnout. That's awesome. And I
That's
don't
right.
know a single person that's working, and especially at an executive level, that doesn't feel that total overwhelm every single day. So I know what
Hmm.
you have to offer is valuable. So
That's
tell
right.
me, what do you see as the biggest problem in your industry right now, or just with what you do, and how are you working to solve that through your business?
Ooh, I feel like there's always layers to questions like this. And the beginning of the year, my filter tends to be a little low. So y'all are going to get the real, real.
That's
Get
what we want. That's
ready.
what we want. That's
Um,
what we learned from.
so there's a couple ways I'd answer that. Thing one is the name of my firm is Soil and Shadow because our values are looking at living systems and looking to living systems for models and frameworks for how to lead, run teams, and do collaboration. And so a big issue that we see in our sector is just we don't organize ourselves like that. Like our economic prosperity goals tend to actually be at odds with how living systems and living organisms function healthily. And women leaders feel this very acutely. And so an example I will give is things like if you're managing a ranch or a farm, there's cover cropping if you want healthy soil, right? You let the soil rest for a whole season and you just put cover crops on and you leave it alone. So if we don't build in seasons of rest, we will deplete our soil as leaders. Cover cropping is also boundaries. If you take a rest, but you don't cover yourself with good boundaries, then you're going to get hit with a bunch of things like rain. It's going to erode you. You're going to get hit with a bunch of things like rain. It's going to compact you and contract you. There's just really beautiful work we do in looking at how to build ourselves as a healthy soil ecosystem. So that's part one. And part two, I would say another big issue is just the it's on us to fix it all tendency of women leaders, especially as caregivers. And I'm right in that, right? Especially as a sandwich generation. If we don't do it all, it directly impacts our children. If we don't do it all, it directly impacts our parents that we're taking care of. So it's very hard. This negotiation, the codependent negotiation of what is ours to do and what is other people's business at a systemic level is incredibly nuanced and challenging. And so that's a big one that we walk women leaders through all the time, and it's particularly acute post pandemic.
Wow, there's so much to unpack. Can you share with us just maybe a simple example of comparing to that living organism, something that we would do on a day to day in our corporate world?
Yeah. Okay. One of my favorites, outcompete pathogens. So when we are working with teams who have behaviors that they do not prefer, maybe people are giving aggressive feedback. One of the ways that soil manages pathogens. If there is a bacteria in the soil that is a pathogenic bacteria, what that healthy soil system will do is outcompete that pathogen with beneficial bacteria. So it's not going to go straight to the pathogen and go talk to that person who's giving aggressive feedback and focus on the squeaky wheel. Soil will build up all of the beautiful beneficial things around the pathogen, not to make it go away, because adversity is healthy. It keeps you at a growth edge, but it reduces the adversity to the point where it keeps you on your growth edge, and it's healthy adversity. It's not the kind of adversity that's going to tip you into a state of unhealth. So the correlate to that on a team is the way to deal with aggressive feedback is to look at the golden ratio of feedback that actually helps teams thrive, which is 5 to 1, right? 5 specific positive feedback comments to every 1 negative criticism. That's one thing we do in our feedback training that is a very core, just basic do this first type principle. And it's really supportive.
So let me make sure I'm understanding correctly because I so want to implement this. So you're saying when we're providing feedback in whatever conversation or situation we might have, is to couch it. And if we have one negative or aggressive piece of feedback that we're sharing, to also give the positive along with it. Am I getting that right? Or am I making it too
This
simple?
No, that's actually, it's super helpful to hear it said that clearly. So it's more like, let's say there's aggressive feedback happening in the system. A
Mhm.
direct route to dealing with that would be to train on how to give more assertive feedback and try to change the aggressive feedback into assertive feedback. And so looking at it from a living systems model, we actually take it a couple octaves deeper first. That is an intervention, what I just said, but that training is usually step 3. Step 1 is we say, what is this system's relationship to positive feedback? What is the ratio of positive to negative feedback, period? And so we first try to rebalance the positive to negative feedback ratio, which for most people won't feel like a direct intervention with the aggressive feedback, which it's not. But you try to prepare the soil of the system to be a lot healthier so that once you train on assertive versus aggressive feedback, everyone has more stamina and more training and more practice at noticing what's going well, naming that, having that build goodwill, and that naturally starts to break down usually a lot of the angst that was behind the aggressive feedback to begin with. A lot of times it's about camaraderie, it's about cohesion, it's about a feeling of orienting toward purpose, it's about feeling valued, respected, and supported. And that beneficial work starts to tackle the underpinnings of why it was going wrong in the first place. And sometimes it just fixes itself.
That is so fascinating. So you're literally you're first defining what the issue might be, the root cause of everything,
That's right.
and starting from there without doing any finger pointing or anything.
Correct.
Right. So
Correct.
that's where you
You
get your
don't create
positive.
an opportunity for defensiveness as
Right.
a beginning step. As a beginning step.
That is so powerful. My goodness. Okay, so I have to ask you this: are you writing a book?
Well, so what I just said, a lot of Soil and Shadows work comes from many different sources. We are actually publishing a chapter in a book on regenerative teams that's going to be coming out sometime in 2026. We're in 2025 now. What?
I
It's
know.
going to be coming out, I think, late 2025 or 2026. But we would like to write a book at some point. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to keep our eyes open for that. So, talk to me a little bit about what makes you unique in the way that you're helping others. And I know what you're doing, period, is unique in itself. So, tell me a little bit about what you do that makes you unique.
Yeah. Well, it is again in the name of our firm. So there are many professional development training firms and executive coaches out there. We love them. We need more of them, especially in the purpose driven work. We needed more on the purpose driven side than anywhere else. And the three really, our values at Soil and Shadow are soil, shadow, and joy. So on the soil side, I mentioned that earlier when it comes to a um, distinguishing factor for us is that we look to living systems for how to be. We try to model our tools and we try to map existing leadership and team development tools onto living systems frameworks so that we know the root of what we're advising people to do is not coming from an extractive, there's infinite resources place. We're coming from the place of how do you create the conditions conducive to life, which are the conditions conducive to healthy team members, conducive to innovation, conducive to sustainable growth. So that feels like a very unique part of what we do. We're always trying to tie it back to living systems. Another unique piece is the shadow piece. One of the reasons that that's in the name of our firm is because our focus on equity and inclusion really locates on where are you in this? Where am I in this? We start with ourselves. We start with complexity. We start with a both and approach of yes, there's oppression. Yes, there's discrimination. Yes, there's microaggressions. Yes, there's all of these things. And we are also always holding personal responsibility in any interaction we have. It's very hard to balance personal responsibility with systemic factors. And that's a deep part of our work. And we go deep very fast with teams and we get right to the heart of the discomfort. And so we really only work with clients that are ready to engage that level of complexity and are not attached to the 15 politically correct things that it's okay to say at any one point. And then this third piece is joy. A lot of this work can feel really heavy. I am a camp counselor from way back, and I'm pretty irreverent in the way that we facilitate. And so teams know if you work with me, you will be laughing your butts off. And there is a lot of joy, even when we get into really kind of, especially when we get into uncomfortable topics.
Wow, that's a gift. That must be a gift that you have because I think that a lot of people, when they're carrying those heavy conversations, there's a tendency to get, in that overwhelm and exhaustion, but to have that joy and aliveness going too, it's got to be very empowering for the people you're coaching. Awesome. Good for you. So tell me, I know what you're doing is, to me at least, very unique in the executive coaching space. Where do you see the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years, or how are you staying on top of that?
The executive coaching industry is moving quite a bit toward digital repeating tools, you know? And so we are, especially in the land of AI, what's impacting the psychology and therapy field, where there are AI therapists now, is also impacting the executive coaching field of AI executive coaching for teams or just AI leadership coaching for teams. And so we are definitely moving toward digitizing a lot of our IP because we've been around for 10 years now. So a big way that we do our fractional people ops is a learning community. So your team can sign up, you have group coaching calls with me, but we really are emphasizing personal touch. And we are trying to do some education for people around the distinction between tools you can use AI for and things you should not use AI for. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So Barry Johnson's polarity mapping is a really useful tool for every team. I'm obsessed with polarity mapping. I'll just say that. And it's where you have a polarity like a relationship oriented way of managing versus a task oriented way of managing. You have upsides to both of those polarities. You have downsides to both of those polarities. And then you have warning signs for when you're starting to tip into the downsides, right? You can imagine the task oriented side is you don't care about me as a person, you just care about what I produce, and it's too linear and it doesn't deal with emergence, right? Those are some of the downsides. Relationship, we're not being direct enough in our feedback and everything's all nice all the time and everything's taking so long, and it's just, but they're interdependent things. You need them both.
Mhm.
So the idea with polarity mapping is the ability to hold extremes at the same time that are interdependent and necessary for a team to thrive. You could have a staff meeting. I've seen teams do this and it's worked really beautifully. You have a staff meeting, you talk about issues that the team is having, right? What are the struggles? What are we wrestling with? You pop it into ChatGPT. You say, hey, can you give me 5 polarities along with their correlating maps based on the transcript from this conversation? Out it pops. That would have taken so much longer before. But now you can really use a tool to do some of that like granular work, and then you can just go in and edit it. What you need a human for is then how to use the polarity map over time. How do you coach a team through talking about the downsides when they're starting to come up without finger pointing and blame and contempt? How do you help a team hold a relational field of positive intent and goodwill when there's a lot of passion and heat behind the polarity? So the ability of like a people ops strategist to walk a team through actual performance enhancement is an art form and requires the ability to sync with people's nervous systems and have the really concrete performance behavioral science to know how to influence those nervous systems toward efficiency, all of that. So that would be something that I am noticing. I think that discernment about what to use technology for and what to use humans for is going to be very, very relevant over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the fact that you're sharing a perfect example of how AI can be used so effectively, but definitely not replacing you. The human element's got to be there.
Yeah, I think AI is going to just make things more efficient when it comes to people not wasting their time. You
Right.
know, you're going to get right into the art form of relating
Mm.
and be able to stay there, which is a big complaint people have had on teams in perpetuity, right? We don't get to bond enough. And teams who use start with why and work like that know that staying in purpose and vision as much as humanly possible is how to unlock exponential growth.
Wow.
And tools like AI is going to help smaller teams who don't have big budgets to hire a human for everything be able to be in purpose and vision more of the time. That is my hope, and that's what I see. And that's what we've been encouraging our clients to use like custom GPTs for.
Okay, that's awesome. I can't wait to go visit your website now. Okay, so now I'm going to shift to a personal perspective here. Can you share with us what your biggest challenge in your personal life or your professional life that you've experienced thus far in your life and how it's actually shaped how you're doing business today?
The polarity that I carry internally about my ambition versus my homebody is the biggest challenge that I carry. There's throughout my career, I have been the very ambitious woman CEO who's asking for $500,000. And then, that's after doing a TEDx talk and then being on national television and public speaking and like all of that, right? Um, and I enjoyed that. That did lead to my burnout, and I made the pace of it more sustainable as I started my own company. And also, I have a 4 and a 7-year-old. As I started having children and my nervous system started acclimating to quiet and nursing babies and being up at 3 a.m. and hearing the silence and very nourishing food, I'm changing.
Mm.
And I have a person in me right now who does wish I had a couple hours to spend making a puff pastry from scratch and wants to be home so that I can nurse a water kefir fermentation experiment and wants to garden and wants to homeschool my kids. And the drive to do both is very strong. And they're both part of who I am. And there's no reconciling it. It's just more, I try to be, my spiritual and reflective practice is very rigorous. And so I just try to stay as in contact with myself as possible in the navigating of those drives.
Got it. You articulated that so well. That was awesome. Well, tell me if you could choose to have lunch with one person, living or deceased, who would that be and why?
Right now, it would be Octavia Butler.
Okay.
She is a Black woman. She was a Black woman science fiction writer. She passed away. But with all of the burning in Los Angeles, I'm not sure when this is going to be released, but there's burning in Los Angeles right now. There's wildfires. And Octavia Butler's from Pasadena, which has been one of the most devastated parts of California in the fires. And like 30 years ago, she wrote Parable of the Sower about the burning times in the state of California and the remaking of the state of California from a science fiction perspective. And the burning times, I think, started in 2020 or something. Like when the major wildfires started happening consistently is when she wrote in her book they would start. So there's a lot of conversation right now just about the storytellers who were tapped in. And I would love to sit with her and just talk about what's happening right now and what she sees.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to have to research her as well. This is what I love talking about. All of you sharp professional women is we get exposed to things that we just aren't exposed to. So, from the type
Hmm.
of work that you're doing and the level of expertise that you have to who you're reading and how it applies to the current world, that's awesome. Well, tell me, what would be the best way for people to reach out to you if they're interested in working with you or just learning more about you?
Yeah, you can go to soilandshadow.com. We have a little work with me button in the top corner if you're ready to get to work sooner than later. And I also have a Substack called Social Fertility, and it's reflections on leadership, motherhood, and life. And so you can read through the Substack. There's a podcast in the Substack. There's writings in the Substack, and if you'd like to just get to know our work more, you can look at that as well.
Oh, sounds lovely. A lot of different options available there. Well, that's awesome. I know that our audience is going to love the show and hope that everyone will take a peek at your website and reach out to you as appropriate. So, thank you for being a guest today.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money, it's also about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you desire.